Hey guys, welcome to this part 4 in our series on how to recover some information from a failing or corrupt hard disk drive. If you haven't checked out parts 1, 2 and 3, where we attempt to repair the drive itself, you can check them out in the playlist somewhere over here. This is part 4 and unfortunately all of our repair techniques have failed, so we're going to go ahead and move on to some advanced recovery techniques. Let's check it out. The software that we're going to use to attempt to recover some of our files is actually already bundled with the test disk software itself. It's called PhotoRec, and again, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, I'll put the download link to the test disk software in the video description below. There's two methods that you can use to run the PhotoRec software. We've got the GUI method and the command line method. I'm going to demonstrate both for those of you who are maybe more familiar with one or feel more comfortable with the other. But we're going to start with the GUI method here. So what we need to do is just go ahead and open up the directory that we've installed test disk on. And if we go ahead and scroll down, we'll see that there are two options for PhotoRec. There's PhotoRec_win and there's QPhotoRec_win. For the GUI, we're going to want the QPhotoRec_win option. We'll use the PhotoRec_win without the Q whenever we look at the command line. So we're going to go ahead here and double click on QPhotoRec_win. Here we get the normal Windows UAC prompt asking us for administrator privileges. You might get an additional prompt saying that the application is unsigned and you might need to acknowledge, say, I understand, or press continue anyway. I don't remember the exact option that's on the button, but we can go ahead and click continue or yes or whatever you're getting prompted with and launch the PhotoRec software. We'll see here that the GUI launches for us. We're prompted with a number of different options here, and the first one we're going to take a look at is this drop-down menu at the top. That allows us to select which physical disk we'd like to run the PhotoRec software on, and once we've selected one, we're then prompted to see if we want to run it on the entire disk or just a specific partition. We're going to go ahead and do something slightly different here. In part 2 of our series, linked here for those of you who haven't seen it, we went ahead and took an image of the failing or problematic hard disk drive. And the reason we did that is this kind of intensive operation where we are attempting to recover or do some serious analysis on the drive might cause the drive to fail entirely, and then we're left with nothing. When we take an image of the drive, we take a copy of all of the information on the drive. We can store it somewhere where it's much less likely for us to have some sort of failure. That is the image that we've stored on another known good drive. So in the drop-down menu, we're going to go ahead and select add a raw disk image, and then we're just going to navigate to the image.dd file that we've previously taken off the problematic disk. And then when that opens up, we're going to select the no partition or whole disk. You can select a specific partition if you want to narrow your search down, but I want to do a really broad stroke here and attempt to recover any files anywhere in the image or the disk that we've previously taken. On the bottom left hand side here, we get the option to choose our file system type. By default, the more common FAT, NTFS and various other common file system types are selected. You do have the option to select ext2, 3 and 4 if you know that that's what you're using, but again, you're probably not. You're probably using something like FAT or NTFS, especially if you're on a Windows machine. Then on the bottom right hand side, we get the options to scan either the entire partition, or if there's unallocated space on the disk or partition, to only scan the unallocated space. I want to do a fairly aggressive scan here, so I'm going to leave it at the default, the whole. I want to scan the entire disk or partition. Skipping down here to the bottom a little bit, we're going to go ahead and hit the File Formats button, and that brings up a little pop-up menu which asks you to select which file formats you're looking to recover. By default, all of the most common file formats are selected. I'm going to leave it that way because I'd like to recover anything and everything that I can. However, if you know that you're looking for something specific, for example, you're only looking for JPEG files, selecting only JPEGs here and deselecting everything else allows for a very targeted recovery. It means the folder of recovered files that you get at the end of the process will only contain JPEGs. You won't have to sift through an awful lot of other partially recovered or recovered junk files that you're not looking for. So that's why you might select one of the targeted files here. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. In this next step, I'm going to go ahead and choose the destination directory that I would like PhotoRec to send all of my recovered files and folders to. There's a couple of rules that we need to follow here. So the very first one is the destination directory should be at least as big as the source directory. Whilst unlikely you'll be able to recover absolutely everything from a failing hard drive, the last thing that you want to have happen is PhotoRec run out of space in the destination drive and not be able to recover all of those files and folders. That would be a disaster, so at least as big as the source directory. The second rule should go without saying, but I'm going to explicitly say it anyway. The destination directory should not be the same as the source directory. What I mean here is if the E drive is the one that's failing and you're trying to recover some files and folders from, you should not send your recovered files and folders to your E drive. You should pick an entirely different drive. The reason here is because as you're reading from the disk drive, PhotoRec will be writing to the disk drive, and it may overwrite some of the files and folders you're trying to recover. In this selection, I'm going to choose the D drive. The D drive is the same drive that I could use the recovered image from. That's okay because I'm reading from the image, but I'm writing to the physical drive. So there's no chance of me overwriting some of the files and folders on the image directory itself. However, if you're recovering from a physical hard disk drive, send it to a different physical hard disk drive. So as I said here, we're just going to go ahead and select the browse option on the bottom right, and we can go ahead and select a destination directory. Again, it should be different from your source directory, but because I'm reading from an image here, I'm okay with putting it back on the D drive. In fact, I've got a folder here directly for it. It's going to be the restore folder. I want to select that folder. And then at the very bottom here, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the search option. And that's going to run for a little bit of time here. It's probably going to take 30 or 40 minutes, but through the magic of YouTube, we can skip straight to when the file recovery is complete. So here we get a nice little summary of the number of files recovered and the type, and I can see here that there's a small handful of files like .pngs and .jpegs that I might be interested in. I'm actually going to be able to locate them in the directory that I set for the restore point, the destination directory, and you can see here there's a bunch of subdirectories that have been created. There's quite a lot of files and folders here. We'll be able to go through some of them later on to see what we've managed to recover. If I click into them, I can see that unfortunately a lot of them are filled with some garbage files, and that may be why you would want to select a very specific file type like a JPEG or a .png to be the only file type that you'll restore. PhotoRec is also available with some slightly more advanced options via the command line, so let's take a look at how to do that. Opening up PhotoRec in the command line is very much like opening up test disk in the command line. We're going to go to the Windows Start menu and then search for CMD and open up a command prompt. I'll just expand that for us here. And then whilst we're in the command prompt, we're going to want to use the CD or change directory command to navigate to the directory that we've extracted test disk, which is where PhotoRec will also be installed. So for me, that's C users video desktop and then test disk -7.2-WIP, but for you, it might be a different destination. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. And then when we've navigated to that directory, we want to find the PhotoRec software. So I can go ahead and start typing PHOT. And then if I hit the tab button, I get photorec.se2, which is not the one that I want, and then photorec_win.exe. It's important to say here, it's not the Q PhotoRec, that's the one that is the GUI. This is photorec_win.exe. Just like we did when running PhotoRec in the GUI, we want to go ahead and select the image that we've taken of the failed or failing hard disk drive. That allows us to run more intensive tasks without the risk that the physical drive itself will fail. So in the command line, we need to specify the file path that that image is stored on. So for me, that's D and then image.dd. And again, if I start typing the word image, and then hit the tab key, it'll auto-populate image.dd for me here. Then I can go ahead and press enter. That'll prompt me with Windows UAC once again. Once again, it might also prompt you to say that the package has not been signed by Microsoft. It's perfectly acceptable to just hit run or start or yes, both times, whatever the prompt is for you. And that will bring up the PhotoRec software in another terminal window. I'll just expand that here. So once that's launched for you guys, you can go ahead and select the image by hitting the enter key. And then again, we're going to be prompted for which partition we'd like to run the software on. By default, one of the partitions is selected, but I'm actually going to go ahead and use the up arrow key to select the whole disk. I'd like to run it on the entirety of the disk to see what information I can recover. We can go ahead and press enter here again. And then we get prompted for the type of file system that has been used on the partition or the disk. By default, other, the FAT_NTFS has been selected. And again, just like when we were using the GUI, we can continue with that. But ext2, 3, and 4 is available if you know that that is what you have been using. I'm going to select other because I believe the disk was using NTFS. And then here we need to choose the destination directory that we will be sending the recovered files to. Once again, guys, just like when we were using the GUI, we want the destination directory to have at least the capacity of the source directory so that we've got enough room for our files and folders that are being recovered. And we would like to ensure that it's not the same physical disk as the one we're trying to recover for if you're recovering from a physical disk. So if you're recovering data from the E drive, do not set the destination directory to be the E drive, otherwise you might overwrite some of the files and folders you're trying to recover. For me, I'm recovering from an image of the drive, and I'm writing to a separate physical drive, the D drive, so even though the image is on the D drive, it's totally fine for me to select the D drive as the destination. Just like navigating test disk, we're going to use our left and right arrow keys to navigate the hierarchy of the command line. If I hit the left arrow key, I can go all the way up to my D drive, and then on the right arrow key, I can navigate to the restore folder that I'd like to restore to. So once I've got the right directory, I can go ahead and hit C, and that will allow me to start reading from the image and start writing to the recovery drive itself. As usual with the power of YouTube editing, we don't have to wait around for the process to complete. We can skip straight to the end where we see that we've actually managed to recover quite a lot of information. Remains to see if there was anything useful here, but we'll check it out. So that's it, guys. That's how to use PhotoRec in both the GUI and the command line. I'll be able to peruse some of those files and folders that we've recovered to see if there's anything of value in there. But once again, remember, backup, backup, backup is the key. Don't put yourself into a situation where you have to try to recover some of those files and folders. Otherwise, if I can get you guys to do the YouTube dance, which is to like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps the channel out and pushes them to other people like you who might be interested in this content. Otherwise, I will catch you guys on the flip side.